you're going to need to like walk out of your world and cross a bridge and
Mm,
land in my world.
right.
While you're in my world, actually immerse yourself in what my world is like. What's Cindy's
Right.
world like? And ask. So when I'm explaining something, if you don't understand what I'm talking about, to like,
Hey everybody, Lee Wright here. I am divorce coach and welcome to Seasons Ebb and Flow. This channel is a little bit of everything when it relates to divorce and healing from divorce. And I'm really excited today for today's interview. I am interviewing Cindy Fabico, and she is a good friend of mine, and she is a licensed therapist. And I've talked to her on and off as a friend about some of the journey that I've gone on, understanding attachment styles and myself working towards becoming more secure in relationships and understanding where my insecurities were showing up. And so I wanted to interview her and learn a little bit more of that from a professional's perspective. And so Cindy, I'm so glad you're here. Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
yes, thank you for inviting me, Lee. I'm so excited to be here. So I am a licensed mental health counselor and a licensed marriage and family therapist. I went back to school in my late 30s, kind of like looking for what's the next thing that I'm going to do in my life. And so I've been doing this work for 20 years. And when
Wow.
I went into it, I don't think I really knew what I was going to be most interested in. I just knew that I
Right.
wanted to work with people and help people. But I was quickly drawn to working with couples. And
Mm,
the reason that I was so drawn to working with couples was because I realized that, like, the family, the couple unit is kind of
yes,
the building block of society. Because if you have a
absolutely.
good couple, whether they're having children or not, and they're nurturing and supporting each other, the energy that they're creating and putting out into the world is very positive. And
Yes,
you have a healthy couple and they're bringing children into the world, and they're modeling, really healthy habits and
yes.
good interactions, then once again, it's like this exponential effect that it has on society. So while I do work with individuals, my passion is really working with couples. I just absolutely
Yeah.
love it.
That's,
Yeah.
it's so interesting. I read two things that really resonated for me when I was like going through the divorce and feeling like, oh my gosh, is this horrible for my kids? Three things actually. But one is that children grow up in the space and energy between the parents. And if it's unhealthy and negative or angry energy, the kids pick up on that. And that's the environment they're growing up in. And so I thought to myself, okay, even though divorce isn't optimal, the energy between my ex and I by the end just wasn't enjoyable or positive for me to be in. So I don't know, we didn't fight a lot, but I don't think it was healthy energy. And then also, I thought, I don't want our relationship didn't have much affection or anything anymore. And I thought, I don't want this to be the model of what my kids see as marriage or what a healthy marriage should look like. And so, and we are amicable now. So I feel like in some respects, sometimes parting ways, if it's just not working anymore for the children, could actually have some positives. It's not all negative. But yeah, I think that's awesome that what you're doing is to try and help that next generation as well by helping the couple.
That's right. Yeah. And, a lot of what you said there was like a completely true. The idea that they're growing up in this energy that exists between the parents. And, sometimes when I talk to people, I talk about that, like that energy, like imagine what it feels like. What's it feel like between the two of you? And they'll be like dark, dank, like, you know,
Right.
murky. And I'll be like, so just your children are swimming in that. And
Yes.
so to really put effort and energy here in this like, couples container is going to benefit everybody.
Yes.
But I think one of the things that's really interesting to me based on that general topic is what I noticed. So I'm 61, and so people who come in my age group, often are coming after a long marriage. They're,
Yeah.
for years, they haven't talked about the issues and the challenges between them. Things have been
Hmm.
kind of pushed under the surface. The kids are gone now. Maybe somebody else caught somebody's eye, whatever. But there's
Right.
disconnection, like
Yes.
emotional disconnection in the couple. And to be able to help people see that there is a way to bring that back together when it really feels dead to them.
Yes.
They feel like there's really no hope. And,
Hmm.
honestly, sometimes there isn't. Sometimes
Yeah.
one person or the other, or maybe even both people, have like so long been emotionally checked out that they
Hmm.
can't check back in.
Yes.
But the thing that's really creates so much hope for me is, who comes in, who's in their 20s and 30s and 40s, is people at the beginning of relationships, not even married yet,
Wow. I love
or
that.
people who are married and they're just at the beginning because they have had exposure to therapy. They've seen the
Hmm.
value of therapy, and come
Yes.
in. We can quickly kind of like teach some skills, figure out the underlying issues from their childhood that's showing up in the marriage.
Yeah.
They've formed
And
a
then they have that awareness now, young, of like, oh, some of my childhood wounds and whatnot are why I'm behaving like this. And they're young enough to like make changes, and
and
then they haven't built up all those resentments and baggage over the years
yes,
yet.
exactly. But then the other piece that they figure out is, oh shit, if all this stuff from my early life is what's showing up in this relationship, and I don't get my shit together, and I hope I can swear here,
Yeah, totally.
my relationship with my partner, then my kids are going to grow up to have the same relationship issues that I have. And
Yes.
so that's a motivator. So, in the 20 years I've been doing this work, I've seen just like such a change in people's coming into
Mm.
therapy, like super open, interested,
Oh
aware,
man, I love that.
because there's so much in our society right now. I think it's just a really beautiful thing about the idea that therapy really does help. You really can make a difference. You're not just going, well, I should say, if you're coming to somebody like me, you're not just going to somebody who's going to sit and like shake their head and say, uh-huh.
Right. And
Like,
be like, oh, you're doing great.
yeah, somebody like me, I'm going to challenge you, whether you're coming to me
Right.
individually or as a couple. I'm going to teach you skills, challenge you, hold you accountable, do all those kind of things. Because the way I look at my style of work, both individually and with couples, is kind of like a combination of teaching.
Hmm.
So I'm
Yes.
teaching about neurobiology. I'm teaching about attachment styles. I'm teaching about the uh, what's it called? Your your system, your brain, the thing that triggers
Your nervous
your
system?
nervous system. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm
Woo!
teaching
Came out
about
with
the
it.
nervous system, and then I'm like giving experiential exercises, and so people really can, like, from the very first session, can really walk away with some stuff
Go
that they
home with
can
some
apply
skills
right
to
away.
practice and activities. And yeah, I've had a few therapists over the years, and the ones that kind of just make you feel good about yourself really aren't the ones that help you grow. It's the ones that challenge you to see where you're showing up, maybe not as optimally as you can,
Yeah,
even if it's uncomfortable to look at. That's where the real growth happens, just in general in life. Like, growth is going to be challenging at times. You're not always going to, you're not perfect, and it's not always the other person. Like, we all bring our own shit to the table.
that's
And
absolutely true. 100%.
yeah.
So yeah, so that's kind of just a little bit about me and my basic philosophy. So do you want me to talk about like my approach, what style of marriage counseling I work with, or what?
Yeah, I think for now, tell us a little bit about, I know that you do EFT and just what that means when a couple comes in to see you, and kind of what to expect if a couple came in for help.
Yeah. So first of all, I would like to I will talk about that, but just to before we step into that, I wanted
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to say something about choosing a therapist or a marriage therapist.
Mm.
And kind
Okay.
of because people come into this, they're in a kind of a difficult place. They're like
Mhm.
trying to find somebody. Often they're just like picking the first person that they see. And so there's some things that I encourage people to really look for when they're looking
Okay.
for somebody to work with their relationship. So
Yeah.
when we go to graduate school, when we're in graduate school, we learn all about many different things.
Yes.
And so somebody who is a mental health counselor, or in other states, there's different codes for it, but we're just learning a broad base of different business
Right.
ideas. We have to do 2 years of working with people under supervision before we get our license. But we in that training, we don't learn a lot about couples. It might be one class. Now,
Oh,
somebody
wow.
who's a marriage and family therapist might have 4 or 5 classes.
Okay.
So, but that's over the course of a whole graduate degree.
Right.
The
Yeah, that's not a
the
lot.
people who have then left graduate school and decided to make this sort of like a vocation, and put effort and energy into like learning more deeply about, it's really a craft.
Yes. Oh,
There's a few
absolutely.
different like schools of marriage therapy that are kind of like primary. So there's people who are
Mm.
trained in the Gottman style, which is really
Yes.
good. There's people
Yeah.
who are trained in Imago, which is also very
Mm.
good. And there's people who are trained in EFT, which is emotion focused couples therapy, which is what I'm trained in. I've done training in all of those, but
Yes.
I was drawn most to EFT.
Hmm.
A lot of it because of the clinical research behind it. It shows it's like really stands up in
Yes.
research that like 75% of the couples have like dramatic change in their relationship, and it can be done
Wow.
in a condensed time frame, like maybe about
Oh,
10 sessions, if
dude,
people
that's amazing.
and apply themselves. It's not
Hmm.
always just 10 sessions,
Right.
you know.
But to actually see some real results in the first 10 sessions, even that is,
And that
especially if the couple's really struggling.
Exactly. Exactly. So just to like share a little bit about what EFT, let me go back to my how to find a good marriage therapist.
Yeah.
What
Okay.
somebody wants when they're, first of all, you want to have somebody who will do a free phone consultation with you, who will
Yeah.
talk to you, that you can ask them questions, who will tell
Hmm.
you about their philosophy and their training. And what you're looking for really is, do I connect to this person? Are
Yeah.
they talking about the way that they do it in a way that resonates with me? Because if
Mm.
not, and then you show up, and really both people have to buy in, right? Not just one.
Right.
But if
It's
you
not
don't do
one.
that, then you show up in this place where you're supposed to talk about your relationship and your life and sex and like all these things with somebody that you might not even be
Right.
comfortable.
There's just not a natural good rapport.
Yeah. So there has to be a sense of like a really good rapport.
Yeah, that makes
And
sense.
so like really looking for somebody who is like, what kind of training do you have postgraduate? Like,
Mm.
what is your style? That kind of thing are really good questions to ask.
Mm.
So people can really get a sense of that. But EFT, which is emotion focused couples therapy, it was created by Dr. Sue Johnson, and she is like an avid researcher. And so her passion was, first she had learned about attachment theory, and then she
Okay.
was doing more studying and learning and understanding, and she started to realize that sure, we can teach people how to communicate. Communication is a skill. We can
Yes.
teach people how to communicate. However, if you can't teach people what triggers them and how to
Hmm.
regulate their nervous system when they are triggered,
Yes.
how
Oh
to
my God.
co-regulate with their partner, then
Yes.
all the communication training in the world is,
Right.
it's actually going to make you feel worse. You know,
Yeah.
you spent all this money in therapy learning how to communicate.
Hmm.
I heard you say, that kind of stuff.
Right. The
But
mirroring and
yeah, but if you don't know how to regulate your nervous system, you don't know that when your partner when you like just look this way like this, your partner's nervous system gets activated and they are not able to pay
Yes,
attention anymore because they got the signal that you're not paying attention. It's
totally
so fine tuned.
subtle. And then that reptilian brain takes over and
Right.
you're either in fight or flight or those,
Yeah.
and you can be communicating, but that it's not sinking in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not sinking in. In fact, you could be communicating and it might look like you're saying the right words, but you're
Mhm.
not really taking it all in. So,
Yes.
um, so when EFT, really the basis of it is understanding the importance of attachment.
Right.
So
Okay.
not really necessary. Maybe one day we'll do a whole conversation about attachment theory in
Yeah, I
general.
would love that.
But the overarching thing to understand in EFT is that it changes the basis of the adult relationship attachment from
Okay.
what we maybe were all, maybe a lot of us grew up thinking, okay, it's okay for a kid to need their parent, to need,
Yes.
connection, to need some level of attention. But when you're an adult, you're supposed to be self-sufficient and not need
Hmm.
anything from anyone. Well,
Right.
basically what Sue Johnson, in her research shows is like, no, that's not true. You
Not.
leave your family of origin, and either you had good attachment and you walk away healthy and secure, or you
Mhm.
leave that environment and you had all different levels of, not so good and, not
Right.
so bad attachment, and you're either avoidant or anxious and all these kind of things. And that's how you show up in your relationship when things go wrong.
Yes.
You show up as either anxious or avoidant. And if your partner, it mindset is, you're an adult, you shouldn't need me, um,
Hmm.
then that sets the nervous system into like, oh my God, like fear, like anger, run
Right.
away, like whatever that
Clingy.
clingy, whatever that person's thing. And what we try to explain to people is, oh yeah, that's normal.
Hmm.
That's not pathological. That's
Right.
normal. Your partner is your attachment figure in adulthood. You chose
Yes.
this person to spend the rest of your life with. They are your most important person. When it doesn't feel like they're there for you when you need them, or that they
Yeah.
can hear you, and when you're trying to express something that's important,
Traumatizing.
it is a level of traumatizing. And when it
Hmm.
happens over and over,
Hmm.
the inability to hear each other, then it sort of really becomes like, I'm not going to try anymore.
Exactly.
I'm just going to give up. And that can happen fairly rapidly, because
Hmm.
if I'm coming to you to talk about, it might to you seem like it's nothing, but let's say
Hmm.
I'm coming to talk to you about a fight I had with my best girlfriend,
Right.
coming to my partner and I'm like, oh my God, Susie and I had this argument and like my feelings are really hurt. And if your partner's response to that is, okay,
Hmm.
you're an adult, I'm sure you'll figure it out.
Right.
Or why don't you do this? Or why don't you do that? That doesn't feel like listening. That feels
Right.
like you don't want to talk to me anymore. You're not interested in what I have to say, and you want me to just move along. And
Yes.
so that leaves the person feeling like alone,
Yeah.
basically.
Alone, and like they don't even want to listen to me or hear me. They don't understand me. I'm
Yes,
not seen or heard in this relationship.
yes,
And yeah.
exactly.
And then the rabbit hole starts.
Then the
And
rabbit hole starts.
yeah. I
Yeah,
know, like from my personal experience growing up, my family interrupted each other constantly, and like getting heard in my family or listened to was not always easy. And one of my big triggers is being interrupted by, telling a story. And especially if I get interrupted and then they don't follow up and say, like, oh, sorry, you were saying. And I have finally learned that that's like throws me completely. And I now like tell them, like, that bothers me. It's partly my own insecurities and baggage, but like, I need you to know, and it's okay if you interrupt me, but it really helps me if you're like, oh, okay, wait, what were you saying after you've interrupted? Like, I need some acknowledgement, and it can't happen all the time or it will just freak me out.
Right.
And that's taken a long time to create that awareness and
Yeah.
understanding.
Yeah. Yeah. So part of what Sue Johnson talks about is that there's three ingredients that you need to have in a relationship for the attachment to feel safe and secure and like positive and good. And
Huh.
the first one is that like, is your partner accessible? Right? Can I reach you? Like if I speak to you, are you able to like listen to me and hear me?
Right.
Are
Like
you
focus if they have
focused?
ADD and it's really hard to hold their attention.
Yes. So can I reach you? Are you available to me? Are you present? So let's say, okay, so maybe somebody's that. But then
Mhm.
are you responsive? That's the second one. So
Mhm.
it's ARE. So
Okay.
accessible, responsive. Are you responsive? So I just you listen to me, but
Right.
now do you validate me? Do you
Yes.
ask me questions?
Yes.
Are you
Probe.
interested in what I have to say? And
Yes.
and then the next level, the E is engaged. Like, are you like really engaged with me? Is it like, did you listen to me, ask me some questions, and now you want to get done with it? Or are you really
Right.
interested? I,
Right.
I talk to couples a lot about the importance of curiosity, right?
Oh
If
my
your
gosh.
partner says something that you feel like, what? Like, how could
Mhm.
you say that? Or what? I didn't know it's awesome. Now you have an
Mhm.
opportunity to know more about this person.
Explore. Yeah. Get to know that person
Yeah.
deeper.
If your
Hmm.
partner comes and tells you something that you've done that upsets them, instead of getting hurt or offended or angry, which is what
Right.
most people tend to
Yeah.
do, think of it as, oh, because you love me, you want me to know who you are and what makes you
Exactly.
unhappy. And
Yes.
so if you're not telling me what you're unhappy about, you're burying it. And
Hmm.
I don't really know you. We have a fake relationship,
Exactly. You're
right?
not showing up authentically with the good and the bad and the stuff that bothers you and doesn't. Like, I know until recently, I'm more secure than I ever have been, but has shown up anxiously, which has a lot of people pleasing from me. And people pleasing is there. I'm not telling them the things that bother me. I wasn't even aware of some of those things in the beginning. And like they weren't able to fully get to know me. Like I wasn't fully in it with the full vulnerability. I thought I was being vulnerable, but it was to things that I was comfortable being vulnerable with. But like the things that were bothering me that were like uncomfortable to share, or I wasn't sure how they'd react, I just sweep it away,
Right.
for the
That's
time
right.
being.
You'd sweep it away for the time being until one day something happened that
Yes.
then pushed a little bit too much of a button. And then all that stuff comes out, and the other person's like, what just happened?
Right.
Right? Because they thought
Yes.
you were just happy, and then they're blindsided.
Right.
You can see how that is so disconcerting, right? I
Yeah.
thought you were
Yeah.
just like, I thought you were chill. I thought you were
Mm.
cool. Right?
Right.
Now
Everything
you're
went,
turning
you
up
were
as
just so
crazy.
easygoing.
Yeah, now you're
Yeah.
crazy.
Right.
Calm down, right? And like all those kind
Exactly.
of things.
Yeah. It's not
In
that
a
big a deal.
but that's it's funny that you're saying that, because I think at the beginning of most relationships, and most people will say this, they do communicate pretty well. They are
Yeah.
pretty vulnerable. They are pretty
Hmm.
transparent. Not every
Yes.
relationship, but a lot of relationships. But
Yes.
also they're showing up as their best self. So they may
Totally.
not, share as deeply or as
Mhm.
and then once you get further into the relationship and people feel comfortable with each other, you would think that that would create more openness and more vulnerability. And sometimes it does, but often
Yes.
it's the opposite. Often
Yes.
it's like, you know what? I know who this person is. You know who I am. I don't have to try that hard. I don't have to listen to you.
Mhm.
Let's just watch TV for 5 hours at night and not really have any
Right. You're
conversation.
going to be there no matter what.
You're going to be there no matter what. So no effort gets put in. And then
Mhm.
one or the other people does have an issue and wants to talk about it.
Mhm.
And, in that moment, if their partner, is like, listen, we're watching TV, like, why are you bringing this up right now?
Right.
And that can start to be like a whole shutdown. So anyway,
Yeah.
in,
Well,
in,
one other thing related to that is I feel like once you're further along in a relationship, there's, and you are attached to the relationship at that point to some degree, there is more to lose if you start to bring stuff up. Like in the beginning, you share vulnerability and you're like, but whatever, if they don't like me, I'm good. But then you get further along and you're kind of like, oh, I like this person, I don't want to lose them, so I'm not gonna, rock the boat too
right,
much
right.
until the boat is like sinking, and then you're like, all right, I gotta do
Yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So, this kind of thing that we're talking about is, the next, so you learn when you go to an EFT therapist, right? So you learn about the ARE, the
Yeah.
accessibility, the responsiveness, and the engagement. So you learn basically about those principles. You learn a little bit about, brain science, neurobiology, and the nervous system. One thing about neurobiology that's really interesting that people that I talk to people about that they generally find fairly interesting is the idea of interpersonal neurobiology, that we regulate each
Mm,
other's nervous systems either in a
yeah.
positive or a negative way.
Right.
And that when you're going to have an important conversation with somebody, something that is about emotion or feeling,
Right.
or if emotion comes up, it needs to switch to this thing. There should be a very specific amount of distance between the people. And the way
Oh.
to gauge that and to think about that is you think about a baby, right? So a
Mm,
baby is like a mother's or a father is feeding a baby.
right.
Baby's like right here in the arm, and the parent is
Yes.
like, like with a bottle, like here's the bottle,
Feeding.
or the baby,
Yeah.
or breastfeeding and down here. That distance, and in general, the mother or the father is like keeping eye contact with that baby.
Totally.
If they are, then the baby's nervous system is
It's
calm.
calm.
If
Yes.
the parent is, distracted and never looking, then you will tend to see a baby whose nervous system is maybe a little
Wow.
bit overactive because they're trying to get that connection or their attachment. Same
Huh.
is true with us. So what
Wow.
I talk to people about is when you're going to have an important conversation about your relationship, and we model it every single time we do it, every couples therapy session, the whole
Mm,
session is, based around this. You have to be facing each other.
uh-huh.
You have to be, about that distance, maybe a little bit further apart,
Right. Okay.
so you can monitor each other energetically. And so in
Mm,
that distance, if I'm talking about something difficult or hard,
mhm.
and you're like looking at me and you're shaking your head and you're,
Right.
then I'm calm and I can consider and I can continue to talk, and it feels
Mhm.
like safe, because
Yes.
safety is the key in these kind of conversations.
Yes.
But if we're close like this, and as I was talking about earlier, you look away or you roll your
Mhm.
eyes or you try to cut me off in the middle,
Mhm.
then my nervous system gets activated in a
Right.
different way.
Yes.
So, teaching people the importance of the closeness so that they
Mhm.
have to manage their nervous systems.
Right.
But
Yeah,
they
because
have
one of
to,
them wants to get up and walk around the room. Now that energy is like
that's right.
disconnected, and
That's right.
both nervous systems are freaking
That's
out.
right. That's right. So
Mm.
sitting, also I tell people sitting, and like, why sitting? Because you're grounded, right?
Yeah.
You're like feet on the floor, butt in the chair. Nobody's
Mhm.
walking away. I mean, they can, but it's less likely. And so just
Right.
everybody's nervous system feels so much calmer.
Yeah.
When people start to have, these kind of conversations, it usually turns into one of three things. So
Okay.
there's a thing called the demon dialogues in EFT. So
Okay.
it's like the three different dances that
Okay.
people tend to get into, and most couples like default to one of these, uh,
Right.
or the other. But so the first one, the first demon dialogue is, I might be using the wrong terms here, but it's like fight, like both people are
Yeah.
like out to win.
Right.
They're out to be right. They're out
Yes.
to like, and so
They're both on the offense.
they're both on the offense. They're not listening. They're talking
Mhm.
over each other. They're just like escalating each other.
Yeah.
Okay, so that one often is what shows up earlier in a relationship before
Okay.
people start to like trigger even deeper stuff within each other. And
Right.
the next one, which is the most common, is what's called the protest polka. And
Okay.
so let me walk you through what this one looks like.
Okay.
Most people, and this book, by the way, let me just show you this book. It's called Hold Me Tight.
Okay.
The book. This is the book that Sue Johnson wrote for the general public about EFT. And
Ooh,
it's
I'm gonna
such
get
a
that.
great book.
Really?
When I
Okay.
work with couples, we use this. I give them homework out of it when they
I
come back.
love that. Okay.
So that they're learning what I'm teaching at a pace that like makes therapy go so much quicker. But anyway, so
Okay.
so
Cool.
the protest polka looks like, let's take a husband who has been at work all day,
Uh-huh.
and I'm going to be super traditional here. Sorry, this is like there's other
Yeah,
ways.
that's fine.
The husband's been at work all day. He's had a really hard day. He's like drained. He
Right.
walks out the door at the end of the day, and all he wants to do is what?
Decompress and
Decompress,
relax.
go into his room, change his clothes, be calm.
Yeah.
But his wife, who works part-time and has been with kids all day, when he
Mhm.
walks in the door, what's going on with her? What does she want?
She's over it. She wants to hand the kids to him and go decompress herself.
Right. Or
Yes.
she just wants to talk about like this happened today and that happened today and this. And
True.
so
That's true. Actually, that's very true.
And so what he perceives and what he feels, he walked in the door, he's already at like level 5, level 6.
Right.
She's at level 6. He walks in, she starts talking about her level 6 day.
Yes.
And her purpose in doing that is to release, right?
Right.
Like, and to be seen,
Connect to him.
Connect. So he knows not to bitch, not to complain, not for him to fix what happened, but just kind of like to feel a connection after the day. And what he hears is, "Are you fucking kidding? I'm sorry, I can't."
Right. You're good.
Are you kidding me? I've been out working all day, and I walk in the door,
and this is what I walk into.
This is what I walk into. And so he probably doesn't say that. He probably says a couple like perfunctory things that, might be like perceived as a blow off. And then he goes in the bedroom. And so what do you think she does? She follows him.
Right.
Hey, like, I want to talk about this. And she's elevated now. Now she's at like a
right
7 or an 8.
Yes.
And he's like, I'm just trying to get down to a 3 in his mind.
Yes. Right.
And now she's making my life hard. That's his internal dialogue.
Totally.
And so he shuts down even further. He gets quieter. He stops responding at all.
Right. Avoid.
Now she's at a 10.
Mm-hmm.
She now is pulling out of her brain all the things that has ever hurt her, that he's
right
and dumping it all on him. And then his internal dialogue is like, I'm always the bad guy. Nothing was enough.
I'm not respected.
I'm not respected. I'm not appreciated. And
right.
So basically shuts down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And she is left with her nervous system on 10.
Right. And his is on 10, but in a shutdown freeze.
Oh that
totally.
I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah.
The way that is a good way to describe that is, on the surface, he looks like he's at a 1. But underneath the surface, like a duck, a duck is floating around the pond, but underneath their feet are like, go, 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 go.
Right.
That's going on with him.
Yeah. Or disassociating, like just like I'm going somewhere else. Like they're thinking about going fishing or something. So they're like, I can't even stay in this.
I can't even. Right.
That
kind of a mindset. And so what generally happens there then is that's the dance that they keep doing over and over, and they don't ever have the skills to like resolve it. They
Right.
don't ever figure out what's underlying that.
Yes.
She may have some attachment issues from childhood, and it may be that no one ever listened to her, and so this is pushing even more buttons. He might have had, a mother who was demanding, who was always wanting to
Mhm.
get in his business.
Right.
And so it
Nagging in
doesn't
his
have to
mind.
necessarily be that. It just could be that, the way that they interact and communicate is different. But if that pattern continues,
Yeah. It just,
those people start to,
yeah.
start to lose hope.
Hmm.
But then they'll come back together and things will be okay. And then
Right.
always will say it's just the stupidest, silliest things that cause us these fights. And it's
Hmm.
specifically because they just don't have the skills to understand
Yes.
what happens, because it's kind of like once that gets triggered, it is kind of like on autopilot.
Yes. Yes.
What we're trying to teach people in EFT is to notice that pattern and catch
Hmm.
it early,
Yeah.
help each other pull out of that. So in that exact scenario, if for instance the husband, comes home, he's like, ready to go decompress. The wife comes like, "Bah, bah, bah, bah," if he were to say, "Hey, sounds
Hmm.
like you've had a really challenging day. I'm really interested in hearing about it. I need to go to
Right.
the bedroom. I just want to change, like maybe take 10 or 15 minutes. I want
Yes.
to come back out and I want to hear all about it."
Totally different scenario just
Totally
happened.
different.
Yes.
And they both get their needs met. See,
Exactly.
in
And
the
they
other
both there
scenario,
stay in that
nobody gets their
same,
needs met.
yeah.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
just that simple,
Right.
so hard.
It's, yeah, especially if you're not aware and you can't communicate your needs. Like once you at least are aware of your needs, if you can tell the other person and they can then be aware, like, okay, you need this, I'm gonna try and meet your needs because I love you and I want to.
That's right. And most people want to meet each other's needs.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
Doing
way
it.
more pleasant than that other dance.
Yeah.
Like I learned in this process of learning about my love languages and stuff, my love language, the first one is touch. And I know when like someone I'm dating comes in the door, or I get in their door, I need a hug, to be held for a minute, maybe a kiss, but I need eye contact and connection. We don't even have to talk at all, just a hi and that like co-regulating with that hug for a little bit. And I now tell people like, I need this like in right away. And then I'm calmer and feel relaxed and connected. Yeah. And, then once I've told them, they know, they're like, okay. And nobody seems to dislike doing it because it's calming for both parties.
But
So,
that's the power of knowing yourself and being able to ask
yes,
for what you need. And,
yes,
and to find a person who's like, okay, I hear that, I can do that, even though that's not my natural thing to do. I can do that because that you talked about the love language. We could do that a love languages thing another time. But
yes, totally.
to understand each other's love languages is
It's
huge.
huge. Yeah.
But okay, so back to these three
The third
three
dance.
human dialogues. Yeah. So the first one is the fight fight. It's called something else, but I can't think of it. The next one is the protest polka. And the third one is called freeze and flee. So basically that's where, we come together, we kind of like get to a stalemate.
Mm-hmm.
We're not getting anywhere, we're not talking, and and both people separate and both people walk away kind of like
Deflated and
that's really when people come at that stage, it's really they're in the real danger zone.
yeah.
Sometimes people show up early in a relationship in that place, but generally that's because it's two people with avoidant attachment,
Right.
who don't have an ability to navigate difficulty in the relationship. They haven't
Right.
learned yet. Not they don't have an ability, they haven't learned yet how to navigate that. And if they can be taught that, that's really important. So a big part of all three of these is back to the nervous system. Teaching people that your body is the first place that will signal distress to you. It's
Totally.
not your mind, it's your body. And so I,
Mhm.
at the beginning of working with people, I walk them through, so when something like this happens, or when that just happened now, where did you feel that in your body?
Right.
Getting them much more into that introspection, like really like noticing what's inside and what's going on with their nervous system.
Yes.
And teaching them that, okay, once you start to be attuned and present to your nervous system, then when you're in that conversation with your partner and your partner's eyes roll and you feel that hit,
Mhm.
instead of like jumping at them like what you might normally do, like, oh, there you go
Right.
again, or fine, like you don't want to listen to me, I'm out. You can
Yes.
say, you can take a deep breath
Mhm.
and pause. You might not even need to say anything,
Right.
and center yourself. And
Mhm.
then, you can go on. And if the partner stays attuned, then it's cool. And maybe you didn't need to get triggered. Maybe it was just like they had to look aside because they were uncomfortable staring at you for too long.
Right.
If it continues to happen, then to be able to pause, seek what you need, say,
Mhm.
hey, I like, thank you for listening, but it feels like maybe this might not be a good time because I feel like you keep getting distracted. Are you cool
Yeah.
continuing to do this? Or I'm feeling really triggered. I think we
Mhm.
need to stop this conversation, and can we
Mhm.
come back to it in like an hour or something?
Right.
And learning those skills to be able to take responsibility for your own nervous system. Them rolling their eyes didn't make you do what you
Mhm.
did. That's what your
Right.
body did. And
Yes.
some people might not have had that experience, but because you did, now you have to take responsibility for how
Yes.
you have to see if you can manage it yourself. If you can't, you have to speak it and ask for what you need. And if you're
Mhm.
so agitated at that moment that you can't do that, you have to say, we need to take a break.
Yes.
Giving people permission to take a break is huge, because they
Yeah.
have been taking breaks, but the breaks have looked like, fine, I'm out of here. Right.
Right.
And so then
Very
both
unhealthy.
people end up feeling terrible,
Totally.
and walk away not going through their head thinking about what could I have done differently or better, thinking about like,
Mhm.
he did this or she did this.
Right.
But what I tell people to do is, like, when you take those breaks, first of all, make sure that it's stated in a way that is like, not, you made me feel this way, but I feel this
Mhm.
way, and so we need to take a break, and we come back and talk about it and give it time.
Yes.
Okay, or it has to be at least 20 minutes.
Yes.
20 minutes at least to get your nervous system calm. And then when they
Okay.
come back, or when they're apart, to be thinking about, what might be my partner's point of view about this? Where might
Right.
they be coming from?
Yes.
How could I present this in a way that maybe they could hear me better?
Yeah, that won't make them feel defensive.
That's right, because you do have to think about that. You do have to think about how your partner receives information. What
Right.
are trigger words that you already know will set them off? And being
Mhm.
kind of careful about noticing tone. I mean, tone is like huge.
Yes. Oh my gosh,
Are you
huge.
talking too fast? The amount of
Mhm.
information you're giving. Are you giving too much information and your partner's over there feeling completely overwhelmed and lost?
Mhm. Yes.
And so, like, all those things are important. So when they come back together, they can try to start again.
Yeah.
Honestly, I have my first session with couples is 2 hours. And so we do history, and then we
Mm,
actually like spend like 45 minutes just specifically practicing communication in this session.
right.
And then I send them away to read the first section of the book. And then when they
Huh.
come back, we talk more about it. But I want them to walk away from that first session with a
Right.
tool to feel like,
Yes.
if something comes up in this in
In
between,
between.
that they can.
Uh-huh.
And most people come back and they say, "Oh my God."
This
And
was different.
yeah, and part of what I teach them is I teach them what I call love conversations. It's like, it's not anything new or different. It's like a format
Mhm.
that I, created and wrote the words for, but it's basically mirroring.
Right.
But I set it up. I talk to people about the thing we talked about the interpersonal neurobiology. I talk to them about the
Mm,
importance of taking a break, and then I teach them how to listen. And the way I explain listening is something that I learned from an imago therapist, actually, Haiti Schleifer, who's like a magician with couples. But
hmm.
but what I learned from her is this visual, which is,
Mm,
so if you're going to listen to me, then I want that. Then the idea of like deep listening is you're in, like, let's just say it's you and I having a conversation. You're in Lee's
Sure.
world and I'm in
Right.
the world, and my
Right.
world is colored by my experiences, my perception,
Totally.
my history, what kind of a day I had. Yours is
Right.
colored that way. If you're going to really want to deeply understand me when I'm going to talk to you about something that's difficult, you're going to need to like walk out of your world and cross a bridge and
Mm,
land in my world.
right.
While you're in my world, actually immerse yourself in what my world is like, what Cindy's
Right.
world is like, and ask. So when I'm explaining something, if you don't understand what I'm talking about, to like be curious. Oh, you're saying this.
Right.
Can you help me understand a little bit more? Okay,
Mm,
that is there more that you want to tell me about that? Like
right.
deep sense of curiosity and
That
validation.
also sounds like empathy, but like, what if somebody just doesn't have a high ability for empathy? Do you think that that's something that they can learn and build? Oh,
So that's a really good question.
mhm.
So the skill of healthy listening can definitely be learned.
Yes.
People who don't have empathy are not born not having empathy. They are
Mm,
born and had an experience in their
mm,
childhood that, generally people who don't have empathy have avoidant attachment. Uh,
yes.
and so there was something that happened in their childhood where feeling became too painful.
Yes.
So they
Scary.
had to stop, checking in with their feelings. So if I don't know what I feel, how am I going to know what you feel?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes.
And so
Okay.
what they
That
know that
makes
they feel
sense.
is anger,
Uh-huh.
uh,
Right.
and
Yeah.
maybe happiness, but they don't know like what, when they're trying to listen to their partner, it is very hard for them. But yes, they can learn it. And
Right.
the skill, the way that they have to learn it is this interpersonal neurobiology, is noticing
Mhm.
their nervous system,
Yes.
noticing when their tendency is to shut down, understanding
Right.
why they have a tendency to shut down, helping their partner understand what shuts them down. So
And then
knowing,
also maybe learning to connect to their own emotions more, which is
absolutely.
scary, but forcing themselves to do that a little bit more.
Yeah, in fact, that now this also makes me think of another piece. So if somebody comes in and they have like really extreme, like let's say avoidant attachment or really extreme
Sure.
anxious attachment or a lot of trauma and complex, like a complex kind of attachment system,
Yes.
generally I will send them also to individual therapy with somebody else.
Okay.
If a couple comes to me, I see them as a couple. That's my client, is the couple. And if
Sure.
one or both of
Interesting.
them would benefit from individual, then I send them to a colleague.
Gotcha.
Somebody
Mm,
that, knows the kind of work that I'm doing. I know the kind of work they're doing,
yeah.
and it kind of all works
Then
together.
it's symbiotic, helping each person get to know themselves individually and connect to their emotions if they've disconnected so much, and
Yes,
then come together and learn the co-regulation and understanding the other person's world.
that's exactly
Um,
it. Yeah.
it's interesting, the whole like take a break, but in a gentle, nice way. I read a novel called An American Marriage. I don't know if you read it, but it's really good. I love the book. It's sad though, but in it, the couple is having a fight, and they have a safe word that they use, and it doesn't matter who says the safe word, they separate for 15-20 minutes, and then they come back. And when I read that, I hadn't heard of what you just described, and so I was like, oh my gosh, that is brilliant.
So,
But
so that's excellent, because I do often like encourage that people to come up with a safe word or a name for their dance, right? Oh,
oh,
we're in the vortex. We're in the, we're in the whatever. So one of
yes,
those things that it like adds a little humor. So it's not
it
super
lightens it.
light. But
Yes.
yes, a safe word is an excellent tool.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, that's a really good tool. But anyway, so the thing that I teach them that neurobiology. I teach them the idea of crossing the bridge. I teach them that they have to, it's like their heart has to be open to hear what
Yes.
the other person is having to say. And then I teach them how to validate,
Mm,
and how to do it in a way that's effective. And so,
right.
validation looks like, okay, So this is what I think. It does not have to be word for word. It can be
Right.
encapsulated, but it has to capture the essence of what the other person is saying. And then the other
Right.
person has to agree that it has captured what they
Right.
say. So sometimes people will feel like, oh my God, this kind of communication is like so
Right.
hard,
It's so
it takes so long,
repetitive.
it's repetitive. And I'll be like, yes,
Hmm.
100%. But
Right.
here's why you want to do it. Because if you don't do it, what happens?
Hmm.
I mean, you end up being in a fight. You don't talk to each other all weekend.
Right.
So yes, it takes a lot of effort, a lot of energy. It's very intense. But to be
Hmm.
that focused on, like as a
Hmm.
therapist, I understand because I have to be intensely focused with people all day long.
Yeah.
It is hard to be
Yes. It's
engaged
tiring.
and like in
Hmm.
another person's world and like really
Yeah.
grasping what they're saying, all day
Right.
long. But that's what it takes to really
Hmm.
make people feel understood. And so all the time I'm working with couples, I'm modeling through my behavior how
Right.
I want them to be, but I'm also having them, sometimes I'll give the response. Oh, I want you to say
Almost
this.
like role play for them with one of
Yes,
the other
exactly,
couple.
exactly right. And then
Um,
I'll let them try. And then
yeah.
because I have to be really careful, right? Because if they're not ready and they can't do it, then something
Yeah.
quickly gets off. So if I
Right.
can
And they
do it,
shut down.
if I can do it with the partner and like the partner starts to reveal things and open up about things that they've never shared with their partner and their partner's over there watching.
Right.
But when they stop and I ask the partner who was watching, what was that like for you? They're like,
Yeah.
I just learned all these things that I never knew.
Oh, oh my gosh.
I never
That's
understood that that
beautiful.
was how she feels. I never understood that. That was the first time. And, often the other partner will be like, I've been saying this forever. But
Right. And finally he is getting
but it
through.
was because somebody actually slowed down and
Yes.
stopped and listened. And so kind of what I really honestly believe that if two people want to make their relationship work and
Hmm.
they can understand their history, their neurobiology, if they're interested
Hmm.
in understanding their partner and diving deep into that and can communicate or will learn to communicate, I think
Yes.
pretty much any relationship can be saved. Even
That's beautiful.
relationships that have had infidelity and even
Right.
physical abuse. I've had couples where there's been physical abuse and we dig into it and we like
Wow.
get that person to really understand more deeply, even addiction. Even
Yeah.
people who are active in their addiction, if it can be understood, what is it that they're blocking? If they can start to understand
Right.
what that addiction is about and their partner can be empathic to it. I mean, that's like
Hmm.
a lot more than 10 sessions. And they
For
usually also
sure.
have to go see an individual person. And ideally
Yes.
you stop drinking. But then when you think about it, or drugging or whatever, but if you think about it, what's worse? Like
Hmm.
not doing anything, or
Yeah.
maybe the person still is drinking a little, but like coming to therapy and like doing some work in therapy.
Right. So they're growing and
Yeah,
evolving to where maybe eventually they won't need that numbing.
maybe. And so it's tricky. Like sometimes that's just
Hmm.
not a good idea. It has to be on a case by case basis and what's going on with the
Gotcha.
couple.
Yeah.
Like if I don't ever want to put a partner who's with a person who's abusing a substance in the position of having to, put up with things that are very
Right.
destructive to them.
Yes.
So, you know what, that makes me think of just like this one other thing that I talk to couples about is that I want to save every marriage. I'm divorced
Mhm.
myself. I got divorced after 27 years of marriage. And, that's like a not a happy, thing.
Not,
I mean,
yeah,
it's worked
nobody
out
wants that.
fine for me in my life.
Mhm.
I'm
Right.
sure it's not really worked out that great for my kids, I don't think. But in
Mm.
the end, if oh, what was I gonna say? I got
If
sidetracked.
if someone is
If they pay attention to the
every marriage is savable. It's,
yeah, yeah, okay, we just got to go on because maybe I'll come back to it because what will happen is I'll spend too much time on it
yeah, it'll
and I'll
get triggered.
yeah, then
Um
get lost.
so and just something what that when you said addiction, then I thought like what about right now, current day narcissism is something that everybody's talking about, and toxic relationships. And do you believe that if maybe one party is has some mental illness or, narcissistic tendencies, and it's become a very like toxic dynamic. But, it takes two to make a toxic dynamic. Do you think in those situations, even if there is that, whatever the love bombing and then devaluing and discarding, like that process has taken place in the relationship over time, even a relationship like that, if both parties do the work, can be rectified?
Yeah, good question. First of all, I would like to correct what you said.
Okay.
You said it takes two parties to have a toxic relationship. What it takes two parties to stay in a toxic relationship.
Yes.
You
Okay.
can be in a relationship with somebody. The reason that it's toxic is not you, it's the person and the way that they behave. If
That's,
you remain
yes.
in that relationship, then you are party to the toxicity.
Yes.
You
Yes.
notice it doesn't feel right, and you leave, you are not a party to that toxicity.
Right.
And that's really important to understand. But
I
when
love
you
that.
stay in something like that, it becomes a system. It becomes a system
Yes, totally.
So the answer to your question is if the person, once again, the person who is labeled narcissist, I don't like labels, but has narcissistic tendencies, let's say.
Sure.
Again, this is a child who had a difficult, like something happened early in their life
Right.
that has like set them up for this. It's not necessarily something that is the parent is to blame for. It could have something to do with their nervous system and how that
Yes.
affected how they showed up and how people didn't, interact with them in a way that worked for them. There's a lot of different reasons.
Yeah.
And if that person is unwilling to look at themselves, take
Mm-hmm.
responsibility for their behavior,
Yes.
work on the way that they're showing up, then there isn't really an opportunity to work on that relationship. And it
Right.
becomes really destructive to the other party.
To them and everybody around them.
And and people will stay in relationships like with people who are like that. They're not always toxic, but that are toxic enough that
Yeah. And
that
it
it's
becomes,
destructive. And they'll start to lose their sense of self. It's really sad when you see it.
yeah, it's horrible.
So beaten down, and I don't mean physically, I mean emotionally beaten down, that they don't know if it's okay to feel the way they feel.
Right.
And it's really hard to see those people. So that person also needs therapy.
Definitely.
That
Yeah, the gaslighting has them believing that
to have their
they
whole sense of self restructured. They may have
totally.
been a very healthy person coming into the relationship, because that's the other thing people often
Yeah.
say, oh, well, you chose this person because X, Y, and Z. Not always. You met
Right.
a charming person, a person who, was like really interesting and like,
Yeah.
really, like showed you all kinds of attention. And so you got swept in there, and then you got into a relationship and it was fun. And then these things started to happen. And at first it seems innocuous.
Exactly.
And so oftentimes people are
You
like,
get
they don't
desensitized.
realize it. And it's like the frog in the boiling pot of water.
Subtle. Yes.
Right. The frog in the boiling pot of water, right? If you throw a frog in a boiling pot of water, it's going to jump right out. So if it's like toxic from the beginning, most people are going to be like, I'm out. But if it slowly happens over time, then it's like you become like limp.
Exactly. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you're in this boiling pot of water and you're like, how did I get here? Or you don't even, you're like, oh no, boiling water is good for me. Or, this is what I know. Or
it's my temperature.
Yeah.
So there's, I don't remember the thing I was going to say, but I do have another thing. I know we're probably running out of time. So I do want to like leave with the visual of something that I think is also like really helpful that I talk to couples about. So first of all, just like to review, right? So like understanding your nervous system, having a format for communication that makes communication being safe, understanding what is your demon dialogue as a couple. Are you the fight? Are you the protest polka? Are you the freeze and flee? Like
right.
Identify that, being able to understand what's underlying that for you, what's related to your attachment system, which I didn't go into a lot, but we could definitely.
Yeah, we'll do another session.
So let's say, so people like get their relationship back to a better place. They can talk about difficult things, but there's still another piece that has to be worked on, which is how the couple honors the relationship itself.
Oh, yeah.
And so what is the energy that is getting put into the relationship? So
Mhm.
I create this visual for people. And one thing I did just remember what I was going to say. One thing I tell people is like, okay, so you are two individuals.
Mhm.
Marriage does not make you one. You are
No.
meant to be two individuals.
Yes.
And so the thing I was going to say earlier was that, and if this relationship is tearing down one person or
Mhm.
both people, and you've tried to save it, you can't destroy yourself to stay in a relationship.
Absolutely.
It has to be something that is, positive for both
Mhm.
people, that it has a
Yeah.
positive, like, emotional feel, not just a financial,
Right.
situation. So anyway,
Yes.
so there's this, so the two people are these like separate entities. And like, remember earlier you were talking about the energy field between the couple.
Mhm.
But
Yes.
if you think of that energy field as like the relationship, so that the
Mhm.
energy field between is the relationship. And if you think of it as if it's a balloon,
Mhm.
whatever, you can visualize the balloon. It could be a certain shape, a certain color, a certain texture. It could have like pictures on it, whatever. But this
Yeah.
balloon is like kind of floating between the two of you. So how
Mhm.
do you keep a balloon afloat?
Right.
Put air into it. What is the
Mhm.
air that you as a couple are putting into that
Right.
balloon to keep it afloat? And
Yes.
we talk about some of the things like love language things and things like that keep their balloon afloat.
Yes.
And then talking about the fact that sometimes in a relationship, one person is doing all the air.
Yeah.
And the other person, whether it's because they're
Mhm.
having a mental health crisis, they're having a
Right.
work thing, there's something going on individually. They may not have any air that they can put in it.
Mm.
And if the other person can continue to can see that and can continue to put air,
Uh,
the balloon can continue to float. The relationship
right.
stay alive.
Right.
Only go that way
But
for
not indefinitely.
but
Like if it's a temporary where one person's putting in additional air
yeah,
until the other person
comes
rights
back to
themselves, and
equilibrium.
then they're both again putting in air.
Yeah. So that balloon is like floating and it's filled with all, the good stuff. The positive things you say, the time that you spend, the little cute
Right.
texts, all those things are what keep the balloon afloat. But as long as that there's a lot of deposits. So this is a John Gottman thing. It's like deposits and
Yes.
withdrawals. So if there's a lot
Totally.
of
I love
deposits
that.
into that balloon,
Yes.
there can be a pretty big withdrawal. Somebody can do something pretty like difficult
Right.
and it doesn't like deflate the balloon beyond its
Yeah.
capacity of being blown
If
back
the
up.
balloon is always getting new air and you're
Yes,
giving to each other, to the relationship,
yes,
there will be things that deflate it periodically, but there's a continuous filling.
yes. But what often happens with couples is the amount that gets put in versus the amount that gets taken out. You said
Yes.
something shitty to me. You
Right.
you didn't listen when I told you, I
Mhm.
asked you to do this one simple thing and you
Right.
didn't remember to do it, blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah.
And if there's too many of those and not enough of the
Mhm.
positive, then the
Yeah.
balloon
Balloon
starts
is
to like lose its ability to float. And to the point where some couples, when they get to me, their balloon is smashed and stuck together. The sides are stuck together. And no
yeah.
matter how much air they blow into that balloon,
It, it just can't even
well,
separate to
it can't.
fill.
It can't.
Yeah.
It can't.
And that's
I
just,
always
it's
feel
too
so
far
bad
gone.
for those couples, right? Because
No.
oftentimes they've been together for a really long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
If there's one message that I would like the people who are like, listening to what we have to say to hear is that if there's any issue, right, in your
Hmm.
relationship, it would be the best thing you could do
Go
for
early.
yourself, your family, and
Mm.
society at large to go to
Yes.
skilled marriage therapist or couples therapist, not marriage,
Yeah.
skilled couples therapist who can help you get things attuned, help you understand each other, give you skills.
Hmm.
Sometimes I only have to see people 4 or 5 times,
Right.
but I
And
have
then maybe like a year later they come back,
that's
but
what I
they've
was
like
gonna
been
say.
working really well and have good skills or knowledge that they can work with. Yeah, I listen to Lewis Howes and his podcast, The School of Greatness, sometimes. And he's been talking a lot about his current relationship and how when they got together, he was like, base minimum, I want to start therapy from the get-go, because he'd had a few unhealthy relationships. And he was like, this is my criteria. And he said it's really been a positive experience for him. So I was like, that's so interesting. I mean, I've heard of premarital counseling, but not therapy from the get-go. And I think that there's a lot of intelligence to that.
Establishing a relationship with a therapist who you really is a fan of your relationship, really has bought into your relationship, and like you feel is on your side, that you can go back to, maybe from time to time. Like I have a lot of couples that I saw, we did whatever we did, and then I spread them out to, like, we spread out to once a month, then every 6 weeks, and then every 2 months, and then I'll say, like, why don't you, I think you guys are really good, and people love to hear that. When I start, I spread them out pretty quickly, because it makes them feel like, okay,
right, we're making progress, like.
And then when I say, okay, I think we're good, what do you guys think? And they're often like, whoa. But I was like, listen, you know where I am, like,
right,
you reach back to me, I'll get you on my schedule, and it's going to take 2 or 3 sessions, maybe even one, and I'll get you right back on track.
Love that.
I understand each of you, and I understand your relationship, and I can help you quickly when you kind of have those blinders on,
right,
for whatever reason.
That's so cool.
I think having that, connection or that relationship with a good therapist is like, it's like a life hack.
Like, yeah, I think that's so cool. Yeah, I definitely want to do a few more interviews with you. I would love to talk about attachment styles and shame. Like, I've been reading Brene Brown's Daring Greatly, and it's really just been mind-blowing. And so, I'd heard her talks and stuff, but the book is very good. But I'd love to do a conversation on that, and then I'm sure there will be others, but those are 2 topics that I would love to talk about with you more. So where can people, if they want to learn more about you or what you're doing, where can they find you online?
Yeah, so thank you for asking. So I have a website. My website is Cindy, my first name, Cindy, and then the letter LSRG. The name of my company is Life Skills Resource Group. But cool. That is not what it is. It's this is the shortcut. The website is lifeskillsresourcegroup.com, but I have a shortcut to the site, which is mylsrg.com.
Okay.
lsrg.com. That's the shortcut to the website. But I'm also on Instagram and Facebook. Anybody can follow me on either of those. It's Cindy Price Fabico. And on both of those places, I post things about relationships, parenting, like, neurobiology, a good podcast I listened to, a book that I read. I try to post a lot of things, a lot of stuff that's really good information.
Yeah.
Give people, things to, to look
think
at.
about or put into action.
Yeah. So
awesome.
So I think, and if anybody wants to listen to a good podcast about relationships, Esther Perel has a really nice podcast where she's actually doing therapy with a couple. And it's like each one is about a specific topic. It's called Where Will We Begin? Or Where Do We, anyway, it's something.
Where Do We Begin, I think.
Yeah, it is. It's Where Do We Begin? That's a really good one.
I know. I love like every interview I've listened or talk that she's given. I'm like, she's brilliant. And this is such good information. So I recommend her and interviews to a lot of my clients that I see. The ones who are healing or starting dating or anything like that. I think it's just so much great information about living in a healthy relationship dynamic and what it means. Yeah.
So, that's a good point. I will say one other thing, that, what you're doing doing this divorce coaching, separation coaching, like
Mhm.
life coaching, is so important because,
Mm.
what happens is I have this couple, right? And then this thing that was a basis of their identity, how they operated in the world, they see
Mhm.
themselves as part of a unit. And now all of a
Yeah.
sudden, after all these years and the visualization that they had for what their future was going to be, it's
Yeah.
all like kind of come and they have to redefine their life.
Totally.
A lot of people get really lost in that process.
Mhm.
A
It's
lot of
scary and
time.
intimidating, and
Yeah.
it's beautiful as you once start to create that foundation and grounding and find yourself. But yeah, the beginning part is very overwhelming.
Yeah, but
And
what percentage of people do you really think actually do that thing that you just said? Like, like do the work and
yeah,
and then find themselves and figure out like what their issues are. No,
right.
most people don't. Most people get in another relationship and repeat the.
Totally. And repeat the same patterns. That's why I decided I wanted to do this. I was doing all this work on myself and finding like all these amazing things and learning. And I was like, man, I want to share this with people. And the people who come to my support group, and I part educate and then part we just listen. And but I text people YouTube videos and everything. When I see something that's helping me,
I
I want that to be
I do
spread.
the same thing. I do the same
Yes.
with my clients. And then the other thing that you're doing, which is like bringing people together who are, like they're newly single or they've been single for a while, but like trying to find friends, because
Yes.
that is another big situation, right? So if you've been, whatever amount of time you were married, generally your friends have been other
Yeah.
married people.
Hmm.
And, so your social circle, while they might still be your friends,
Right.
it doesn't feel the same.
Socialize.
And needing to find people who are like you, for me that was like life changing, to
Yes.
go from, it took me like at least 8 years after I got divorced to like really figure out, oh, I need to find other people who are single or divorced or
Mhm.
whatever, and create like relationships. And the
Yeah.
beauty of that is now I have this vast network of amazing friends.
Right.
I have somebody I always can find somebody to do something with,
Yes.
or I can stay home, but it's like this sense of like community that I have.
Yes. Yeah.
And,
You're not out there alone, even if you're not in a
and I'm
relationship.
not desperate to get into a relationship.
Right.
I'm
Your
not trying
life
to
is
fill
full.
anything. I don't need somebody to go. So if I choose to get into a relationship with somebody, it's completely because they're going to
Right.
level my life up another level and
Yes.
add to what I've created.
Right. Right. It's not coming from a place of desperation or
That's right.
loneliness.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's
I
right.
love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay, on that
I could
note,
talk
we're going to
forever.
close it out, and
Okay.
we will do this again though, because it was awesome.
Okay. Thanks, Lee.
You're welcome.